can't always blame it on the edit. Some reality stars learned this the hard way and are now doing hard time. So if you're thinking of joining the reality squad, consider these cringeworthy cautionary tales. In 2022, Todd and Julie Chrisley were found guilty of federal fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy charges after allegedly hiding earnings from the IRS and taking out $36 million in fraudulent loans. Todd was sentenced to 12 years in prison, Julie got 7, and that was the end of 10 seasons of Chrisley Knows Best. But the older Chrisleys tanked more than just their own careers when they decided to, allegedly, lie to the IRS.
So therefore I have to ride around with shame and guilt. It's the cross that I bear. It's the letter that's on my chest.
Growing Up Chrisley, the spin-off featuring Chrisley kids Chase and Savannah, also got the network axe. While Todd and Julie headed off to federal prison, their kids suddenly had to figure out how to pay the bills without the reality show income. Savannah and Chase were looking at a serious lifestyle adjustment.
Well, to me, it's worse than them dying, because they're here, but they're not here.
On a 2024 episode of her podcast, Unlocked, Savannah explained, "People have this misconception that I'm sitting on millions of dollars. And I'm like, if you know where it is, please walk me to it. I would love to see it." So would the US Department of Justice. Abby Lee Miller was the alpha dog on her super popular Lifetime show, Dance Moms. But after 7 seasons, the Justice Department came calling with a warrant Miller couldn't bully her way out of. Pro tip, don't claim to be dead broke when the whole world, FBI included, is watching you on TV. In May 2017, Miller was sentenced to a year and a day in federal prison for bankruptcy fraud and illegally bringing foreign currency into the country. Along with her prison time, Miller was fined $40,000 and ordered to pay a $120,000 judgment. That's a lot of tap lessons. But prison didn't destroy Abby Lee's career. Dance Moms waited for her, and when she'd served her time, with a little shaved off her good behavior, she went right back to work in front of the cameras. That was 2019, but in a weird twist for a dancer, Miller couldn't resist shooting herself in the foot.
We're going to sheer talent. I'm sure we'll be embarrassed and humiliated there.
In June 2020, Lifetime fired Miller after 2 former Dance Moms accused her of racism. The network insisted that Miller wouldn't participate if Dance Moms returned and canceled a planned spin-off called Abby's Virtual Dance-Off.
Nobody is going to talk to me that way. No one!
Miller insists her Dance Moms career isn't dead. As late as 2022, she gave an interview to Pop Crave, teasing, "Dance Moms Season 9 won't be on the same network. It will be on a different streaming service. It's separate, so it's shot a little bit differently. I can't give it away yet, but it's gonna be different. It's a little bit different." Farrah Abraham first became reality TV famous as a pregnant teen on MTV's 16 and Pregnant. After she had her baby, she moved on to Teen Mom, which was later retitled Teen Mom OG. However, the network parted ways with Abraham after producers became uncomfortable with her continued work in the adult entertainment industry.
You would argue with a fence post. Yeah. You're telling me you shouldn't?
No, I just think they're being really negative.
Beginning in 2013, Abraham starred in 2 adult films, but it was her subsequent work as a webcam model that was the last straw for MTV. Producers gave her an ultimatum, and she chose to leave. Since then, Abraham's career hasn't bounced back. She attempted a comeback on 2018's X on the Beach and appeared in an episode of 2022's Teen Mom Family Reunion. All the same, in a 2017 statement on Facebook, Abraham seemed undaunted, saying, "I'm proud of myself not giving in to be sex-shamed by Viacom Network. Proud to be an advocate for a healthy sex life, safe sex, teen pregnancy prevention, and so much more." Josh Duggar had already tarnished his family's reality TV fame when in 2015, TLC dumped his parents' long-running series, 19 Kids and Counting.
Josh has done some very bad things.
The final straw was the revelation of a 2006 police report alleging that Josh had molested 5 girls when he was a teenager, including 2 of his sisters.
He had apparently been doing it since he was 12, but we found out about it when he was 15.
Jim Bob, Michelle, and the rest of the Duggar clan returned to reality TV later in 2015 with Counting On, but without Josh, in a bid for celebrity redemption.
The things that children will do when their parents are not around.
But Josh, a married father of 7 by that point, dashed those hopes when he was arrested in 2021 for possession of child sex abuse material. TLC canceled Counting On and likely the whole Duggar family.
That is an awfully cheerful smile for a man who's looking at as much as 20 years in prison.
In 2022, Josh was sentenced to 12.5 years in federal prison, which has since been extended because he was caught in possession of a cell phone. When he's released least in 2032, he will be banned from unsupervised contact with minors, including his own children. Jen Shah was living large as one of Bravo's Real Housewives of Salt Lake City before she was arrested in 2021, with Bravo cameras rolling while filming season 2.
People are wondering, like, how'd you get so rich?
Shah was charged with running a nationwide telemarketing scam that preyed on the elderly and vulnerable, and Real Housewives fans got to watch her deny, while the other housewives blissfully overdosed on, pun intended, Schadenfreude.
No, I do not know what Schadenfreude is.
It's a German term for shameful joy, taking pleasure in the suffering of others.
In 2022, Shah pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison, but she was still clawing her way onto our screens. Hulu covered the time leading up to her sentencing in the doc Housewife and the Shah Shocker, and in 2023, just before checking into federal prison in Bryan, Texas, Shah released a video interview with her lawyer where she came cleanish.
I was lying to myself because I didn't want to accept that I had done these things or that I had hurt anybody.
Thomas Ravenel has made a career out of ruining his careers. He started out in politics with an unsuccessful 2004 Senate run, then became South Carolina State Treasurer 2 years later. But oops, in June 2007, he was indicted on federal cocaine distribution charges. A month later, he resigned, perhaps after a visit from the disappointed ghost of his father, late Republican Congressman Arthur Ravenel Jr. Oh, and he was also forced to resign as state chairman of fellow disappointment Rudy Giuliani's 2008 presidential campaign. Remember that? Neither do we. But like many disgraced politicians before him, Ravenel refused to go away.
Are you going to say sorry?
I'm doing anything wrong.
In 2014, he was cast in Bravo's reality saga of South Carolina socialites, Southern Charm, and he had a good run until his nature caught up with him. In 2018, after 5 seasons, Ravenel left the show amid a series of sexual assault allegations. In April 2018, real estate agent Ashley Perkins accused Ravenel of sexually assaulting her mom, Debbie Holloway Perkins, after they met through a dating app in 2015. And a month later, Dawn Ledwell, former nanny to Ravenel's children, followed up with her own claim of sexual assault. Ravenel pleaded guilty to third-degree assault and battery charges in relation to Ledwell's claim. Ever the politician, Ravenel managed not to serve time for the sex assault charges, and he even made a guest appearance on season 7 of Southern Charm. But his reality TV career appears to be over. It remains to be seen where he'll pop up next. Navarro College cheerleader Jerry Harris became a reality TV breakout star thanks to the Netflix docuseries Cheer, which followed him and the rest of the Navarro cheer team from Corsicana, Texas, as they prepared to compete in the National Cheerleading Championship.
If I didn't have cheer, I would probably be upset at the world and I'll be hurting others.
Harris guested on The Ellen Show and even scored an invite to Vanity Fair's Oscar party, but by Cheer Season 2, it was as if he never existed. In 2022, Harris pleaded guilty to 2 federal counts of sex crimes, including minors, and was sentenced to 12 years in prison. According to the charges, Harris solicited sexually explicit images and messages from at least 10 to 15 minors, had sex with a 15-year-old at a cheer competition, and more. Coincidentally, he's serving his time at FMC Lexington in Kentucky, along with Julie Chrisley. After the 2020 murder of George Floyd, civil rights protests swept across the country. That's when news broke that reality stars Stassi Schroeder and Kristen Doty of Bravo's Vanderpump Rules had previously reported their black co-star, Faith Stowers, to the police for a crime she didn't commit.
Stassi and Kristen falsely attempted to identify her as a woman police were looking for in a string of robberies.
While Doty returned to the show in 2023, Schroeder's career looks to be dead in the water.
How soon before the next NATO gets here?
5 minutes, top.
Schroeder has made a career bouncing from one reality show to the next, but when the scandal hit, her management dropped her, her sponsors abandoned ship, and she even lost her podcast Stassi. But only temporarily, because anyone can podcast. Schroeder has been working on a comeback, appearing in Hulu's Vanderpump Villa, and she's reportedly working on a new solo show called Stassi Says. Looking back on the incident in 2023, she told Forbes, "I'm kind of thankful that things happened the way that they did, because my life is so different now, and I know what I care about, and I know what matters. Everything has just shifted." Tim Norman was a frequent cast member on the OWN reality series Welcome to Sweetie Pies.
My son Tim tackles everything from supplies to managing our employees.
But in 2023, he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison on charges of murder for hire, conspiracy to commit murder for hire, and conspiracy to commit mail and wire fraud in the 2016 shooting death of his nephew, 20-year-old Andre Montgomery Jr.
Andre is like one of the beats in my heart, and it's gone.
From 2011 to 2018, Welcome to Sweetie Pies chronicled the family life of singer Robbie Montgomery, one of Ike and Tina Turner's original backup singers, the Ikeettes. Later in life, Montgomery moved on to another dream, opening a series of soul food restaurants called Sweetie Pies. Tim Norman is Montgomery's son. Andre Montgomery Jr. was her grandson, and both made frequent appearances on the show. But reality stardom wasn't enough for Norman, who first took out a $450,000 insurance policy on his nephew, then took out a hit on him. And although the reality series had finished shooting before the tragic incident took place, the murder devastated the Montgomery family and of course casts a dark shadow over Welcome to Sweetie Pies that's impossible to avoid. In October 2021, Geoffrey Paschel was found guilty of the June 2019 kidnapping and assault of his ex-fiancée, Kristen Wilson.
The next thing I remember, he was beating me.
He was sentenced to 18 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The charges included aggravated kidnapping, domestic assault, and interference with emergency calls. Justice prevailed, but viewers who'd watched Paschel on season 4 of 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 days weren't satisfied. To be clear, the 90 Day Fiancé was a different woman, Paschel's long-distance showmance Farrah, and at least as of October 2024, she's sticking by him. But the fans are far less understanding. After Paschel's arrest, over 5,000 90 Day Fiancé viewers signed an online petition to have him removed from his episodes due to current allegations and criminal charges made against him. And charges notwithstanding, Paschel's past was littered with additional accusations and charges, including drug dealing, to the point where he was barred from entering Canada for life. Paschel took to Instagram in March 2020 to answer the obvious question, writing, "I have been repeatedly asked why I would ever want to be on a show, the best show FYI, where my life would be put in front of everyone to pick apart, especially with my checkered past. Well guys, it is my past. It is my life. It is my choice." Sure, but let's circle back in 18 years. If you or anyone you know is dealing with domestic abuse, contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also find more information, resources, and support at their website,